This video is for educational and infotainment purposes only. It is not intended to encourage or glorify the use of illegal drugs, violence, or criminal activity in any way. Ismael Zambada Garcia, aka El Mayo, is considered by many to be one of the most successful drug kingpins in history. While El Chapo was the face of the Sinaloa cartel and a trafficking genius, most consider the actual boss of the business side to be El Mayo. He is estimated to be worth over $10 billion, hasn't been seen in public for years, and was a ghost to law enforcement for over 50 years. That was until July 25th of 2024 when he was finally arrested on U.S. soil. So what happened? Well, you're about to find out. I'm Joshua Roberts, attorney at law, and you are watching Lawyer Up. This is episode 1 of what will be numerous updates on the arrest and trial of El Mayo. We will also be updating on what is happening with the other member of the Sinaloa cartel that was with him at the time of his arrest, Joaquin Guzman Jr., one of Los Chapitos and a son of the legendary trafficker El Chapo. So who are these guys and why is their arrest a big deal? Well, the answer requires a basic understanding of the history of the Sinaloa drug cartel. Now, we won't spend a lot of time rehashing the complete history of everyone's life and times, as I have full-length videos on El Mayo, on El Chapo, Los Chapitos, and really every other major player in the long history of Mexican drug cartels. But here is the 60-second oversimplified summary. The Sinaloa drug cartel is one of the most powerful drug cartels in the world. Starting about 1995, it was primarily run by two men, Ismael Zambada Garcia, aka El Mayo, and Joaquin Guzman Loera, aka El Chapo, with several of their sons, once they became of age, acting as lieutenants in the organization. And while El Chapo has spent a lot of time in and out of prison, having twice escaped, El Mayo had never set foot in a jail cell ever. In 2016, El Chapo would be extradited to the United States and imprisoned for good. So several of his sons, known as Los Chapitos, stepped into their father's leadership role with the cartel. They would share leadership responsibilities along with El Mayo. One of El Chapo's sons, Joaquin Guzman Lopez Jr., was the other individual who was arrested alongside of El Mayo. So that's who was arrested. The next question is, how were they arrested? Well, Zambada and Joaquin Jr. were taken into custody on the night of Thursday, July 25, by U.S. Marshals at the Donna Ana County Private Airport in Santa Teresa, New Mexico, which borders El Paso, Texas. Frank Perez, a Dallas attorney representing Zambada, told USA Today that Zambada did not come to the U.S. on his own accord. Perez claimed that Guzman Lopez kidnapped him and then brought Zambada to the United States in an effort to get a better plea agreement with U.S. authorities. Quote, "My client neither surrendered nor negotiated any terms with the U.S. government," Perez would state in a statement. "Joaquin Guzman Lopez forcibly kidnapped my client. He was ambushed, thrown to the ground, and handcuffed by 6 men in military uniforms and Joaquin," end quote. His lawyer would go on to say, quote, "His legs were tied and a black bag was placed over his head. He was then thrown into the back of a pickup truck and taken to a landing strip. There he was forced onto a plane, his legs tied to the seat by Joaquin, and brought to the U.S. against his will. The only people on the plane were the pilot, Joaquin, and my client," end quote. Mexican Security Secretary Rosa Isela Rodriguez said that the plane took off with only a pilot from the airport in Hermosillo, Mexico. The tracking service FlightAware has shown that the plane stopped transmitting its altitude and speed for about 30 minutes while it was over the mountains of northern Mexico before resuming its course to the U.S. border. Quote, "It's a fact that one person went out from here and 3 people arrived there," end quote, she would state. So the thought is that the 2 were picked up somewhere in the mountains of northern Mexico. Upon arriving at the airport, Zambada and Guzman were immediately taken into custody by U.S. authorities. Zambada, 76 years of age, appeared in federal court in El Paso on July 26th of 2024, where a judge read the charges and informed him of his rights. Zambada, who is currently being held without bond, entered a plea of not guilty to a slew of drug trafficking charges. I will get into the indictment and go through each charge in an upcoming video. Frank Perez, the lawyer listed for Zambada, is an attorney out of Dallas who handles international drug cases. We will also be doing a full-length video on Mr. Perez upcoming as well. So is this a shocking development? Well, yes and no. While the actions of Joaquin in kidnapping El Mayo, if proven to be true, may seem shocking to some, it's not really all that surprising to me, as El Mayo and Los Chapitos never really saw eye to eye in cartel management. Zambada is an old-fashioned capo who lays low. Los Chapitos are younger kingpins known for their flamboyant lifestyles of club hopping with brutal tactics of violence against their rivals. Now, Zambada has fought those who challenged him, but he is known more for concentrating on the business side of trafficking and avoiding the gruesome cartel violence that draws unnecessary attention to the group. So, if true, this kidnapping stunt would split the Sinaloa cartel in two. As for El Mayo, recall that in an April 2010 interview he did, and this is the only one he's ever done, with the Mexican magazine Proceso, he said that he lived in fear of going to prison and would contemplate suicide rather than being captured. Quote, "I'm terrified of being incarcerated," Zambada said. "I'd like to think that yes, I would kill myself if captured," end quote. Of note is that Zambada is very popular and has won the loyalty of locals in his home state of Sinaloa and neighboring Durango through his generosity, sponsoring local farmers and distributing money and beer. Also note that he is very sick, suffering from complications from diabetes. So is this arrest a big deal? Well, yeah, it's a big deal. Just as big as El Chapo's arrest. Well, at least his third arrest, where they finally kept him in custody. Zambada has been a key target for the U.S. government for years in its bid to take down the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel that are responsible for huge sums of drugs crossing into the U.S. U.S. authorities had offered a reward of up to $15 million for information leading to his capture. Since his arrest, a number of government officials have commented. This arrest, quote, "strikes at the heart of the cartel that is responsible for the majority of the drugs, including fentanyl and methamphetamine, killing Americans from coast to coast," said U.S. DEA Chief Ann Milgram. Quote, "Fentanyl is the deadliest drug threat our country has ever faced, and the Justice Department will not rest until every single cartel leader, member, and associate responsible for poisoning our communities is held accountable." That quote from U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland. The Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said Friday that Mexico was still awaiting details on the arrest and was not involved in the operation. The president quickly distanced himself from the arrest, not wanting to get the Mexican government into another Culiacanazo situation where cartel operatives clashed and completely overwhelmed law enforcement when Ovidio Guzman, another of El Chapo's sons, was previously arrested. Zambada is charged in a number of U.S. cases, including in El Paso, New York, and California, with prosecutors describing him as the principal leader of the criminal enterprise responsible for importing enormous quantities of narcotics into the United States. So, that is where things stand at the moment. El Mayo was in court again on August 1st of 2024 for a detention hearing. We will have an upcoming video detailing his arraignment, his detention hearing, and how each went for him. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to get all the updates regarding this matter as it proceeds through the court system. If you're interested, check out my full-length videos on Zambada's life, how he got his start in trafficking back in the 70s, and his transformation from the Juarez cartel to the Sinaloa cartel. That is all we have today. I'm Joshua Roberts, attorney at law, and you've been watching Lawyer Up.